MAGA comes to talk. We're going to be live, and we got so much to cover. Trump's just having like amazing press conferences today, and we're going to break them down and cover all of it and take your calls. Here we go. Welcome to the program, everyone. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. You're tuned into the Brian Craig Show podcast. We got a lot to cover. President Trump had multiple press conferences today, and I'm going to go through a lot of what happened with the president today because a lot of great things have, well, of course, happened. And this press conference that he had earlier in the day where he signed the bill, or he signed an executive order ending cashless bail nationwide. And if a city or a jurisdiction does not abide by that, if they still are offering cashless bail, they are going to cut off their federal funding. And he has Pam Bondi in charge of monitoring that and keeping track of it. This is an absolutely amazing thing, and there's been a pattern with Donald Trump in this second term that, well, it's the, I guess you could say it's they said it couldn't be done term, because he's doing all of these things that Republicans have been talking about forever and a day, and they never had any intention on doing them, even though they were on the party platform. And of course, what I've been talking about a lot, I was talking about on the morning show today, is this war on crime. You know, there's been endless amounts of money poured into the states and to the cities around America to fight crime, and they've been doing the opposite, right? They haven't really been fighting crime at all. If anything, what these local governments have been doing in blue cities, in these Democrat-run cities, is encouraging more crime and stopping their police officers from enforcing it. And Donald Trump's enough of this, you know. And, you know, one thing you got to understand, the states that he's going into, the cities he's going into, these are Democrat cities. These are not like Republican constituents that he's helping out. These are people that hate him. And a lot of people are pretty mad at him for ridding their cities of crime, but he's doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do for the people that are living in these cities that are victims of these domestic terrorists known as criminals. And, you know, people on the left, they've called Donald Trump a dictator forever. It's one of these things that they say all the time, which I don't really understand. He was elected. Dictators, not only are they not elected, they have complete power without any checks and balances. He's got a Congress. He's got these federal judges that are always making rulings, ordering him not to do his job as president, like this one in the last couple of days, this Obama federal judge that said he got to close down Alligator Alcatraz. Dictators don't have to deal with federal judges telling them they can't do this or they can't do that. They just do. You know, dictators don't have the worldwide and national press in their office every day barking questions at them, accusing them of all kinds of terrible things. Donald Trump does. There's nothing about Donald Trump that is dictator-like in the least. But anyway, he talked about this today, so let's go through this. We got a lot to cover, so let's just jump into it. This is the president in his first press event. This is before the South Korean leader came in. Okay, so, you know, this whole idea of a dictator, there's a big difference in what President Trump's doing compared to past presidents. It's not dictator-like. What he's doing that's different than the past presidents is this. He's actually running the country. He's running the country. These other presidents have been figureheads who do nothing. They're a bunch of do-nothings. And most of what the past presidents have done in our lifetime is work out deals so that when they leave office, they'll be super rich, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious if you look at what's going on. Whether it's everything Bush did with all the companies that were behind him, all of them. The Clintons are loaded now. The Obamas are worth $1 trillion now. Donald Trump's losing money. In fact, he's spending his own money to build this ballroom at the White House. His presidential salary is going towards it. You know, and this idea that there's something wrong with ridding cities of crime. Now you gotta wonder, is this your standard Trump derangement syndrome? Are these people that just don't get it? You know, and they can't agree with anything Trump does? The things that President Trump is doing are common sense. This executive order is an example that he signed today, an executive order ending the cashless bail. Why even have bail? You know, bail and things are a deterrent to crime. People don't want to do crime if they're going to be jammed up in jail. You know, they made over 1,000 arrests in Washington, D.C. since this crackdown in the last week or so. Over 1,000 arrests. Hundreds of them have been illegals, but most of them have been American criminals. They're arresting more. And J.D. Vance, he made a good point today. J.D. Vance, not only has there not been a murder in a week, he says they were averaging a murder every other day in Washington, D.C. So there are 6 or 7 people in D.C. that are alive today that would be dead if Donald Trump had not moved in and taken over D.C.'s law enforcement duties. So you're telling me that the people of D.C., that some of them, it's better off if they were dead? And that the criminals were still running the city? I don't understand what you guys are saying and what you're thinking and what is going through your mind, because it's insane, the positions that people are taking against President Trump. Okay, so let me get to some of the stories. I'm going to go through some more from the press conference today as well. But this just dropped right before the show, and it involves Cracker Barrel. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Cracker Barrel releases, this is the headline in the Gateway Pundit. Cracker Barrel releases desperate damage control statement addressing outrage over branding changes as stock continues to free fall. Now, I stopped in, I didn't eat, but I stopped in to my one of my local Cracker Barrels on Sunday during what is supposed to be the breakfast rush. And I did make a video of this. If you're a Patreon supporter, you can see that video. And I went there, it was about 9:30 in the morning on Sunday morning. That's a very busy time. Breakfast time on the weekends is a time that Cracker Barrel is typically jam-packed with business. And when you get your name in there to wait, you're waiting outside on their front porch where all the rocking chairs are. There was one person sitting in all of those rocking chairs. They were empty except one. All the rocking chairs were empty. They had them all lined up right in the front of the Cracker Barrel except one, and that was an employee who was taking a break. I'm not kidding. I went in there. This is 9:30 on Sunday, when the place should be packed with people going out for Sunday morning weekend breakfast, because everyone, that's a big breakfast time at any restaurant. That go to IHOP, it's packed at 9:30, and that Cracker Barrel was not. In fact, this was the first time I'd been at a Cracker Barrel at that time when it was not packed. I went in the store, it wasn't busy, and I could have been seated right away if I would have gotten a table. I just went in to check it out to see what the crowds are like, and I'll continue to monitor that. And, it ticks people off. I must say, though, I feel bad for the employees. It's not the employees' fault, that they've got this idiot wokester who said that she doesn't want MAGA people eating their food and coming to the restaurants. That's crazy. What kind of business is that's open to the public? A politically segregated business? The Democrats were the segregationists back in the Jim Crow era, and now they're trying to do it again, right? They don't want MAGA people in any of their businesses. They don't want you in their restaurants. They don't want you at their theme parks like at Disney. They want to politically segregate you from all of their businesses, and you hear this a lot. It started when a few years ago they had that Captain America movie out with the girl Captain or it wasn't Captain America, Captain Marvel or whatever the heck it was. And she said she didn't want MAGA people going to the theater to see the movie she was starring in. Since when have you heard, I don't want people, what? So the Democrats, the liberals, have brought segregation back again. This time it's not racial, it's not ethnic, it's, of course, political, but they're doing it. And they feel that it's okay because in their mind, they've convinced themselves. They bought all the MSNBC rhetoric. They think MAGA people are Klansmen, white supremacists, nationalists. They're the bigots. They're the hate mongers, but they think MAGA people are this and they don't want them in there. And they're going down the tubes. So let me read through this article in the Gateway Pundit. This is Cracker Barrel released a statement. Cracker Barrel has issued a new statement in response to the outrage over the sterile new branding, and its stock continues to free fall. Now, the location that I went to, there's a couple locations near where I live. This one has not had the rebranding, and you can see the video if you go to my Patreon page. I went in the store. I was shocked. They sell LPs, vinyl records. They had Lee Greenwood right there with his big hit song that Trump likes, right there in the front of the rack. I was surprised to see that. Cracker Barrel has issued a new statement in response to the outrage over the sterile new branding as its stock continues to free fall. The statement is titled, "A Promise to Our Guest," that's what they call their customers, guest, was posted to Facebook this morning. The restaurant chain, long beloved for its, this is in the Gateway Pundit, long beloved for its traditional American charm, faced a storm of criticism after unveiling a modernized logo that ditched iconic elements like the barrel in the old country store tagline. Fans, including President Donald Trump, slammed the change as a woke erasure of heritage, leading to a $94 million drop in stock value in just one day. No doubt about that. It's going to continue to drop. The statement issued today attempts to convince customers that the core of Cracker Barrel remains unchanged despite the rebrand. See, they're screwing up even further. Cracker Barrel, the way liberals think, this is how liberals operate, okay? And this tells you that the person running Cracker Barrel is an idiot who should be, the statement should be they fired this idiot, lady woke CEO. That should be the statement. They fired her and we apologize to our guest for this, and we will not be renovating anymore and rebranding any more of our restaurants, okay? It's over. We fired her and it's over. But that's not the statement. Listen to this. The statement issued on Monday attempts to convince customers that the core of Cracker Barrel remains unchanged despite the rebrand. We're truly grateful for your heartfelt voices, the statement reads. You've also shown us that we could have done a better job sharing who we are and who will always be, Cracker Barrel wrote. See, this is who wrote this? Barack Obama? This is how Obama, see what they're saying? They're not saying they did anything wrong. They're saying that they communicated the changes incorrectly. If they could have done a better job of communicating their woke garbage, and then people wouldn't be so upset. So there's not only is there no admission of doing anything wrong or making any changes to where they went wrong. They're saying they did the right thing. They just didn't communicate it to all of us, and we just aren't smart enough to understand. The company asserted that the things people love most about our stores aren't going anywhere. Rocking chairs on the porch, a warm fire in the hearth, peg games on the table. The peg games have been changed, by the way. Unique treasures in our gift shop, and vintage Americana with antiques pulled straight from our warehouse in Lebanon, Tennessee. We know we won't always get everything right the first time, but we'll keep testing, learning, and listening to our guests and employees. Well, the guests are saying, fire this wokester. Get rid of these liberal wokesters that are destroying this great American restaurant. But they're not, I don't hear that here. That's what the customers are saying. The statement says, at the end of the day, I hate that expression. That is one of my least favorite expressions. When people say at the end of the day, I hate that. At the end of the day, our promise is simple. You'll always find comfort, community, and country hospitality here at Cracker Barrel. Company officials emphasized that beloved features like the rocking chairs, peg games, and vintage decor are here to stay, and the old-time figure of founder Uncle Herschel will still grace menus and stores, so they're changing the signage. While Cracker Barrel claims it's listening to our guests and employees, many on social media have said that they view the statement as a half-hearted apology. Yeah, I don't even think it's any type of apology. I think the statement is reprimanding people for how dare you be upset. I know we could have communicated it better, but you're stupid and you can't understand what we're saying because you're a bunch of people that like country folk stuff. And you're just a little slow and you don't get what we did. We didn't communicate down to your level. That's how I took it. You can let me know what you think. While Cracker Barrel claims it's listening to our guests and employees, many on social media have said they view the statement as a half-hearted apology, when what they actually want is a reversal. Americans are clearly fed up with corporations scrubbing tradition in favor of trendy, progressive, and often brutalist. I'm not sure what that means in that context. Aesthetics. Yeah, no, I don't think this is Cracker Barrel caving or apologizing or anything. You know, what's happened here is, you know, the wokesters are behind the times a little bit. And, you know, there was a big move, you've seen this in all kinds of things, to rid white Americans out of everything. And the reason they've changed the sign is because it's got a white guy in it. And what they've told themselves is, you know, we've already got those people. We want to bring in new people. And the new people we want don't like white people. So we're going to take the white guy off the thing and we're going to make everything sanitized in our restaurants. You know, and I've seen some images of other restaurants that have been sanitized around the country. And that's true. You know, even places like McDonald's are kind of boring compared to what they used to be. They don't have a lot of personality. You know, the thing about Cracker Barrel, the food is very good. I've never had a bad meal at Cracker Barrel. Maybe you have, I don't know. I haven't eaten there enough to have a big selection. I mean, I've eaten there over the years from time to time, and they've been like a regular person. But the main reason people go is not just for the food. They like that southern country atmosphere that you get. And they've been reporting that their business has slowed down. You know, restaurant eat-in businesses have had a difficult time with the eat-in crowd since the shutdowns and lockdowns. You know, all of that changed it, where people are doing the DoorDash instead of going to restaurants. But Cracker Barrel, they have a different kind of business model than most sit-down restaurants. It's what Cracker Barrel, the way I've always looked at Cracker Barrel for the most part, is it's a rest stop on the highway, right? You're on a long drive, you're driving somewhere, there's a Cracker Barrel, oh, let's stop and have dinner, breakfast, or lunch. And there's things to do there. Why go through that store and look around at the cool stuff in the store, play the peg games, and it's a rest stop more than it is a restaurant, right? And over the years, things have been popping up that, you know, like Wawa, what's the other one? I was just talking about this on the show on Friday. Buc-ee's, any of you guys familiar with Buc-ee's? You know, Buc-ee's is it's like Buc-ee's is a Cracker Barrel, a Walmart, and the coolest gas station convenience store you've ever seen, all mixed in one. And it's almost like a theme park if you go to a Buc-ee's. And those are popping up. Cracker Barrel has competition, okay? And before, they really did not have competition because at all those exits off the highway where Cracker Barrels were set up, the only other things there typically were fast food restaurants. And if you didn't want McDonald's or Taco Bell or something, you'd go to Cracker Barrel. So they've had competition for the first time, and that's hit them. And what they've done was make a mistake, a big tragic mistake. And they have this liberal woke idiot running the company, and as opposed to embracing what the company and the restaurant's all about, which is everything that the woke lady CEO hates, which is Southern hospitality, Southern food, Southern charm, Southern everything, they did this woke renovation, and it's completely backfired. And I know a lot of people may say, so what? You're making such a big deal about Cracker Barrel. You eat there once or twice a year. You know, what do you care so much? It's because what the left have been doing, it started with Obama, really. But what the left have been doing since the Obama era is they've been erasing American culture. How many times have you seen these influencers doing these man-on-the-street interviews, and they interview people and about culture, and they say, and these idiot liberals they interview say, white people have no culture. Well, white culture it's called Western civilization. And it encompasses a lot of things, like good Southern hospitality and country fried steak and all that great stuff. Okay, you know what I mean. And what they've been doing is wiping out American culture, because what Obama brought to the country wasn't just this America hating attitude. There's certainly that, but he has these radical revolutionaries who are destroying the country all over the place. And these CEOs, like this idiot at Cracker Barrel, who should be fired, and maybe she will, who knows, but it looks like they're doubling down here. It's like with those school teachers with the blue hair, with their transgendered flags up in the classroom. The Obama era has given us, and did a lot of recruitment to take over the classrooms with these wackadoodle school teachers, take over CEO positions in major companies like Cracker Barrel, and change the classroom, change the curriculum, change the culture. These judges that are making stupid, crazy rulings, these Obama judges, they're radical revolutionaries who are trying to bring the collapse of the United States as we know it. And what's happening with Cracker Barrel is another example of that. If you're watching live on YouTube, you're welcome to call in. If you're on hold, hang in there. The number is pinned in the live chat. If you're watching on YouTube, it's toll-free, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. My name's Brian. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast, available on all podcast platforms. And if you're on hold, stand by. I got a lot of things I want to cover here before we take some calls. This accident on the Florida Turnpike a couple weeks ago, where the migrant who couldn't speak or read English made a U-turn, a highly illegal U-turn on the Florida Turnpike, and killed, what was it, 3 Floridians, or was it 4? If it was 1, it's 1 too many. And it's amazing how this story has just snowballed. And it's sad what happened to those Floridians, no doubt about it. But Florida is not sitting by and allowing this to happen. This is the New York Post. Florida turns truck weigh stations into ICE checkpoints after an illegal migrant caused deadly big rig crash. These weigh stations are all over the place when you're driving on the highways, all over the place. And the big rigs, they have to stop. If they don't, Highway Patrol goes right after them and stops them. And so they are really going to either start rounding up more illegals at these stops, or they're going to avoid coming to Florida or quit the business if they drive in Florida. It's not always interstate drivers that have to stop at those. A lot of in-state drivers have to stop at those. Yeah, isn't that something? That's a great idea, because it's a big problem with the truck drivers. And if you're not a Floridian, you don't understand. You don't make U-turns on the turnpike. It's very dangerous. If you miss your exit, you got to wait until the next exit, and sometimes it's 10 miles up the road. Or you can make U-turns at the rest stops on the turnpike, but you don't make U-turns on the turnpike. There's areas that are open, and they're for emergency vehicles only, and you can see why, because a guy made a U-turn and got people killed. But this is going to be a major crackdown, and it's another example of what makes me so angry all the time at Ron DeSantis, because he does so many great things as our governor. He's a great governor, but can you trust him after what he did? You can't, and it's very, very disappointing. But they're gonna be doing a lot of roundups in Florida. We have a lot of illegals in this state. Because it's not just a lot of service industry jobs. We have a lot of farming here. So anytime you have those kind of things, there's a lot of illegals, and a lot of them are driving trucks. And I've noticed a lot of Highway Patrol officers on the Turnpike and on I-95 stopping the big rigs all the time. I mean, if I see a Highway Patrol officer on I-95 or the Turnpike these days, usually he's got a semi pulled over. And we know what they're doing. They're pulling them over to find out if they're illegal or not. That's the main reason they're doing it. It's obvious, isn't it? And this, like the crime in these cities that we're talking about. The United States, we've been led by people that have been selling us out and giving our country away. And Donald Trump, as bad as DeSantis was with his betrayal, he's doing the right thing, and he's not the only one. A lot of people are doing the right thing, but President Trump has started really a trend and inspired the whole country of Republican leaders to stand up and enforce the laws that haven't been enforced. All this talk going on lately about the broken immigration system. The immigration system wasn't broken. They just weren't using it. They have a system, they have a machine that wasn't turned on, and Trump turned it on. So he did a lot of things today. Here he is talking about flag burning. Yeah. 1 year in jail for burning a flag. What is wrong with that? Burning the American flag, I know liberals will say, well, it's a form of protest. Yeah, in Iran, right? Would burning, if you went out and burned a Black Lives Matter flag or a Rainbow Push Coalition flag or a trans flag or something, what would happen to you? I saw some guys got arrested for putting tire marks from their car on one of those rainbow flags in the street. They got in trouble. Long after the event, they tracked them down and charged them. Remember that? It wasn't that long ago. A few months ago that happened. So, why is it okay to burn the American flag? And that's free speech, a form of expression. But defacing these other flags is considered a hate crime. Well, it's because, we've had extreme liberal lunatics running the country. That's why. And we've got grown-ups in charge. And anyone who burns a flag of the United States that's a hateful act. That's hate speech by the liberal definition. And, the left, they pass all these rules, regulations, and laws, and they got all these things going on. And they never really think that they're going to be used against them, right? Like all the sexual harassment laws, we saw them, they were used against President Clinton because he's a perv. And time again, you see the Democrats are violating the things that they claim to stand up for. And burning the American flag, have any of you known anyone who's burned an American flag in some type of demonstration or protest? I've never seen it in person. I don't know anybody personally who's done it. I've seen it like on television and online. And it's always something that represents hate. And they're looking to incite something. And that's the reality of it. I remember out in California, some students defaced the Mexican flag in a high school. They got suspended, got in trouble. This was a few years back. You guys remember that? So, it's a crime to deface the. I'm not in favor of defacing any flags, by the way. That's just me. Maybe you are. I'm not. But why are people getting in trouble for defacing the flag of Mexico, another country, or the Confederate flag? How many people have burned Confederate flags? That's happened too. And what happens if you do that? You're in trouble. You get in trouble for that too. That's right, because they do all these things. But the American flag, that's okay. That's okay. But if you deface any other imagery, that's hate speech. All right, let's take some calls. The number is toll-free, 888-465-2631. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're on the air. Yep. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Gabby, Alabama.
Alabama. What's on your mind, Alabama?
Yes. I'm pro-Trump, President Trump.
Good.
And I'm pro what President Trump is doing in Washington, at the border, in every place. We got to get rid of those people that are destroying the country, all those communists, selling the business, selling everything of the United States. They belong to the country. We got to stop that. Enough is enough. Richard Nixon sold the country, sold industry to China. Hell with them.
That's true, he did.
We are not going to keep going like that.
That's right. You're very proud American there, but you have an accent. It's not an American accent. What kind of accent?
I don't ask me about my accent. My father taught me to love this country.
No. I think it's important. No, excuse me. I think it's important that, your family's from another country, immigrants, and you love this country more than people that are...
Well, I'm not immigrant. I'm married to an American, anyway, that's it.
Oh,
the point is
okay.
That what
being
is
stealthy
right now, it is to protect the United States, because the United States, any mistake that the United States makes affects not only the United States, affects the whole world, because
That's
the
right.
whole world depends on the United States. China
That's right.
depends on the United States, the whole world. So, or we take care of the United States now, or we just say goodbye to our freedom and the freedom of the world. That's enough. Goodbye.
All right. Well, boy, she's very opinionated, doesn't want to take any questions. All right, whatever. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, good afternoon, Brian. This is Nick from the peninsula here, Miller's Island.
All right. What's up, Nick?
I want to say I'm from Baltimore anymore, but I'm in the peninsula here.
Okay.
Anyway, I wanted to agree with the last caller, and I think what President Trump is doing is so ingenious, the way he's done it with his executive, with his order.
Yep.
In that it can cause danger and violence. And, I think enough is enough. My grandparents, my mom's dad, whom I'm named after, came from Greece, and, he opened a restaurant in downtown Baltimore back in the day.
Was it a Greek restaurant?
It was what they called at the time a luncheonette. You can go in there and get sandwiches and fast food and stuff, and soda and things.
Yep.
And was just a quickie place. It was you go in and out. You could sit there for a while if you wanted. But that's what they did. And, they were very proud they came into Ellis Island in New York, and they were very proud to be Americans.
Yeah.
We spoke Greek, but they made it, they made sure we knew English, and,
It's on my mother's side, my mother's grandfather's from Greece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we're Greek, Nick. We're related. We are. No, both of my mother's grandparents were immigrants from Greece, and they opened up a restaurant too. It was a Greek restaurant. But I've mentioned this. I mentioned this a few times. My grandmother and her sisters and brother, none of them spoke Greek, and I used to ask my grandmother about this all the time, and she said my dad wanted us to be Americans, not Greeks. And and all these liberals who say, well, you guys are descendants of immigrants. Yeah, but we're descendant of immigrants that Americanized and raised their children and grandchildren to be Americans, not foreigners like you're doing now. It's a big difference.
The key word here, Brian, and I'll go and let the other callers get in here, is that the word is assimilation.
Yeah.
And we want to assimilate.
That's right.
I was born here. My sister was born here. My dad is from the Pittsburgh area, so I'm half from Pittsburgh and half from Baltimore. But the thing is that, it was a very different time, and I keep harping on the whole thing. I feel very confident. I feel very positive about what the president is doing, and I think we're all going to benefit from it. Every city, I think he's got the governor here on the run. And it was very interesting. I was listening to I was watching Right Side broadcasting earlier.
Yeah, I was too.
And in which did you see that where the president is saying how when he met Governor Moore, he shook his hand and he said,
he hugged him and he hugged him and all that stuff. Yeah, I saw all that. Oh, hold on, Nick. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I saw all that. Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, he's getting talked about a lot lately.
Yeah. Well, I think the spotlight is on all of these blue cities, and I think what's going to happen. I'm watching these videos online. There's a group of black women out of Baltimore. It's called Pop and Politics, and they are really going after the governor. They're really pro-Trump. They're pro-American, and it's great to watch these people. So the whole thing is spreading everywhere. So
there's a group of black women in Chicago that are MAGA, that have a MAGA. It's not just it's really long ago to have black conservatives was so unusual. It was very unusual, and now it's commonplace.
Yes, it's wonderful. I'm even starting to see subtle changes in the media up here. And if you listen to talk radio here, all the callers are pro-Trump and against. They want the troops here.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the big talk stations here, and they, after you go off,
of course,
at 9,
of course,
10 o'clock,
of course.
They, Kim Klacik has a show on WCW.
Well, Nick, what's going to happen is these blue cities are all going to be red-pilled. They're all going to be begging Trump to come in and rid them of crime. President Trump said today they could end the crime wave in Chicago in a week. That's I don't know. We've seen what happened in D.C. I guess it's possible.
Look at Washington. They haven't had a murder. And for these, let me just close by saying this: when these mayors, like the one in Chicago, who's a communist, when he says, "Well, we're down by 5%. We're going to have 2,500 murders." Man, you shouldn't have any murders. These cities should be paradise.
Only 2,500? Did he say only 2,500? What?
Yeah, they said, "Well, it was one of the."
My goodness.
They had 3,000, and it's been reduced by 5%. So you mean you're only going to have 2,500 murders this year?
In my town, a number of years ago, there were a couple of murders, and they made documentaries about it because it was so unusual to track down the kill. And these other places, it's really sad that murders don't even make the news. Hey, Nick, I'm going to run, but good points, and we bonded in our being Greek.
Okay, great show.
All right. Take. My mom's adopted, so I don't look Greek. That's why I don't look Greek. Let's take another call. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're on the air.
Oh, hey, Eric from Indiana.
What's on your mind? Yes, hello.
Sorry, I got your stream online. What's going on?
Not too much. All right, take care. What's going on? Oh my goodness. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is Sean from Massachusetts.
Hey, Sean, what's up?
Yeah. Well, seeing...
Hold on, Sean. Let me answer all these busy... My phones are just ringing off the hook. Yeah, go ahead, Sean. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Seeing the reaction of the liberals and how they're freaking out over everything is just a sign of how well we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just looking at a story in Florida that DeSantis has taken away the rainbow crosswalks. And
That's right.
It started with right where the nightclub was, and so of course they're making a big thing about this.
They're taking them down. They're taking them off the roads all over the state,
Right.
and it's happening in all kinds of cities. And I was surprised. And I was watching the local news has been covering this a lot in Florida, and in Fort Lauderdale, it's like every other intersection has a rainbow crosswalk in it. I was surprised. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 of them in the city of Fort Lauderdale alone.
Yeah. I mean, this is going everywhere, and of course, they're still putting a memorial where the shooting was, because of course they're going to use that and say, "Oh, he's disrespecting."
Well, I saw a conservative city commissioner who's in favor of removing the rainbow things out of the streets, and he says there's a lot of political movements. Why are they getting the streets? Why? You know what I mean? We can't let all these political movements or social movements take over streets. We'd have no streets.
That's true. See, but it's just the liberals just want to find something else to try and demonize, the whole movement, and they've been doing that with everything that's been going on with what's going on in Washington, what will happen in Chicago very soon, and it will happen in a week. I can see that happen.
I hope so.
And you know what? It's like they just want to hear themselves talk. I mean, this is it. No matter what happens, they have to be out there protesting. You got all these people out there with all the signs that look the same. They look like they haven't been done up by the person that's holding them. The whole story. And it's just, as soon as that happens.
I posted this on my X. I went to the local No Kings March in Fort Lauderdale. It was on the Fort Lauderdale beach. And I interviewed the people. Yep. I went through the crowd and interviewed people. And the first guy, and what I asked them to do was tell me about their signs. First guy I went to, I said, "Could you tell me about your sign?" He didn't know what the sign said, and he tells me, you can find this video, it's from No More Kings, it's on my X, Brian Craig Show on X, and he said, "Well, they just gave me the sign and told me to hold it. I don't know what the sign says."
Exactly.
And I couldn't believe he couldn't even look at it and read it and pretend. Hey, I got to run, but I appreciate the call. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast. I'll take some more calls before I get to some other issues that we're going to cover. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Eric from Indiana.
Okay, Eric, what's on your mind?
Well,
Oh,
I
here we
guess
go.
we can talk about what you said about the flag burning.
Yes.
How it's, I guess,
Hate speech. Absolutely.
Well, that type of speech is protected.
Not
by the
anymore.
First Amendment.
President Trump's going to sign an order, put you in I've never witnessed a flag burning in person. I've seen them on TV, right, online and stuff. And the only time I've seen people burn them is when they're angry. And it's really just filled with rage. So they're filled with hate.
Okay. So, is it okay, for instance, is it okay to burn any flag?
No, it is against the law to burn crosses.
Okay.
Did you know that? You can't. If you burn a cross, you are committing a federal crime. Why is it a federal crime? And it has been for a long time. Why is it a federal crime to burn a cross on your own property, but burning a flag is protected free speech?
It definitely is free speech.
No. But if you burn a cross, and I'm not approving of doing any of this, but if someone burns a cross on their own property, it's a hate crime, and you'll be charged as such.
Well, for instance, that's a catch-22 thing because you got the KKK, for instance, doing that as protest.
No, you don't have to be in the
So
KKK. No. They pretty much they're out of business. They really don't do that. There's like 3 of them now.
But,
But if you But if you or I, there's 5 of them. If you or I burned a cross, you're committing a crime, a federal crime. Why is that not free speech?
I mean, hey, it is free speech.
No, it's a crime.
For you to burn it. I mean, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
But it also is technically protected by the.
No, it's not. It is not protected. It is a federal hate crime to burn a cross. Because the Democrat Klansmen used to do it. That's why.
The Democratic Klansmen.
That's right. Yeah, the Klan were Democrats.
They were in the past. Yeah.
They were always Democrats.
I
Yes.
Yes. I guess they were. Weren't
Yes. No, they always were.
But
yeah.
it's just, yes. So why is it now that when you have all these people who are on the right spewing all this hate and vitriol towards people of color?
Give me an example of one of our MAGA leaders doing that and what they said, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, here's one from your favorite, Donald Trump.
Okay.
They're spreading, they're poisoning the blood of our country. Who's poisoning the blood of our country?
He wasn't talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You don't want to have a discussion. You've just already decided. Okay, well, if you don't want to have a discussion, I'm happy to not have a discussion. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yep, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, Brian, this is Brad in Illinois, long-time listener, first-time caller. How you doing?
All right.
Hey.
Oh, bad connection, guy. All right, we lost the cell connection. You can call back if you want. Now, let me get to some more of the, I have some more things I want to share. This is Amy Klobuchar. Okay, now Amy Klobuchar here, and it's like the caller too, not the guy whose cell phone went out, the one before that. This idea that Trump is anti-immigrant. He's been married 3 times. 2 of those 3 times are to immigrants, including his current wife, the First Lady Melania. So this idea that he is anti-immigrant just doesn't make sense. The mother of most of his children, except one, Tiffany, are first-generation Americans on their mother's side. Now, so far as racist and who's whatever, whatever racism is, Trump's the opposite. These blue cities are majority-minority cities, okay? Chicago's next to rid of crime, like D.C. Washington, D.C. is a majority-minority city, as they would call it. The majority of people who live in D.C. are African-American. Chicago's a little different. It's split. I'm not sure if it's 60-40-ish, and how what the exact split is, but it's majority-minority, but it's split between African-American and Hispanic. And a lot of the gang problems that go on there are racial issues between the Hispanic and the black gangs. But here's President Trump talking about that. No doubt. Yeah, so Chicago's next. And, the caller who was talking about the poison, Chicago's a part of this. What a lot of the violence in Chicago is black and Hispanic gang activity, but what they're in the business of is drugs. And when President Trump, liberals, they hear things they hear what they want to hear. and they don't hear what's really being said. And when President Trump was talking about, and this fits into Chicago, when President Trump was talking about they're poisoning our blood, he was not talking about ethnic, interracial relationships and such. He was talking about the fentanyl crisis, which fentanyl, the trafficking from the southern border has been shut down. I mean, I don't know, people that are junkies, prices have probably gone through the roof on drugs. But he was talking about fentanyl and other drugs that are being brought into the country, that's what's poisoning people. That's what's poisoning our blood, our country. And you know, the left know what he said, but they tune it out and won't acknowledge. It's just like right now they're advocating for crime, but they take what they hear what they want to hear, and they're not open to hearing the reality of the situation. You know, the fentanyl crisis, it's terrible. It's amazing to me that people even go anywhere near that, as poisonous as fentanyl is. But that's what the president was talking about when he made that comment. You're on the air. Oh, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Garen Thompson. I'm from Tennessee. I just wanted to bring the topic over to economics, if that's all right with you.
Well, I'll see. I'm not going to promise that. I'll hear the beginning and decide.
All right. So my claim is that Trump's economic policy does not benefit the average American and instead benefits those of the incredibly wealthy class. His tax cuts disproportionately favor upper-class Americans, and I would argue that comes at the expense of the average American.
Yeah.
I think it's clear that the middle class.
Okay, slow down, Professor. Slow down, Professor. Okay, let's go back to what you said in the beginning. The tax cuts, you say they benefit the wealthier people. Was that what you said?
Yes, sir.
If that's the case, explain to me no tax on tips, which is now the law of the land. Billionaires get tips.
Disproportionate. I'm not saying he doesn't have any. I'm saying that.
Okay. So you're talking. Okay, now you're okay. Well, I just want to get that out there. So you're saying that rich people get bigger income tax breaks than lower income people.
I'm saying they get bigger
tax
breaks in general.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. The richer someone is, the more of a tax break they get. That's exactly right. Why do you think that is?
Yes.
Why is that?
I think that one, they have access to people who can game the system for them. And
No. You're back in. What are you calling me from back in time to Occupy Wall Street back in 2009? You're reading from.
I'm arguing you from the present day.
Arguing. This isn't an argument. I'm hearing liberal delusions. No, the reason that the rich. It's not a fact. The richer you are, the richer you are, the more tax breaks you get because you are paying more in taxes. Like, I give you an example, okay? When I was young and first started working, I didn't pay any income tax. As I've gotten older and I make a good living now, I pay income tax, right? So the more money you make, the more money you pay in taxes. So when there's tax cuts, you get bigger cuts than people that pay no income taxes. That makes sense? How do you give tax cuts to people that aren't paying taxes?
My general point is not that they're paying less or more in taxes. My point is that they occupy a growing share of the economy and a growing share of the wealth. Year over year, less and less wealth is occupied by actual Americans, and more money is held by the upper hands of the economy.
The upper hands of the economy? The richest man in the world is an American, Elon Musk. All right? Mm-hmm. So he's the richest man in the world. And he's an American. He gets bigger tax cuts than I get because he pays more in taxes than I do.
But back to my point about how less and less wealth is held in the hands of average Americans, and more wealth is held.
Then get a second job. Get a second job. Do you understand? Why
should the average American be forced to have a second job when we can organize the economy in a more equitable way?
I'll just today, and I've done a lot of things in between. I did my first show today at 4 a.m. on the East Coast till 5 a.m., right? Then I stopped, got coffee, and then at 5, and that was a 1-hour show. Then then 20 minutes later, I started my morning show and did a 4-hour show, okay, from 5:20 until 9:20 a.m. Then I had to do a whole bunch of work and stuff, business stuff, work. And then here I am again at 3:30 this afternoon. I did another show. This is my 4th show. Why do you think I do that? Why don't I do just one show? Well, no, I didn't ask that. Why do you think I did 4? This is my 4th show I've done today. Why didn't I do just one?
Because you make more money and you spread your name out further and you make it.
It's not that I make more money. I have responsibilities. I have a wife, a family, a house. I've got car payments. I've got taxes I've got to pay. I've got responsibilities. So I work more. No, hold on a second. I work more because I want more for my family. So I work more so I can make more money. As opposed to you that's sitting on your tail right now, jibber-jabbering to me as opposed to working.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll ignore that comment and just ask.
Well, excuse me. Are you working right now? Have you worked today?
Yes, sir. I'm about to go to work tonight. I work nights.
Well, okay, you work at night. In my life, I've always had multiple jobs and multiple things I've done. Always, since I've been working, because I want to have more.
Sir, I'm a student and an employee. I'm doing both.
You're a student employee. When I was in college, I was going to college, doing a radio show, and I had a wife and a newborn baby at home. So what? Wow, it's called life. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, okay, about tax cuts that you and your commie friends don't get, okay? When you start,
I'd like to bring the point back to my original.
I'm sure you would, but I don't care what I don't care what I'll talk about what I want to. I don't care. Excuse me. You're on hold. I don't care what your point is. I'm making my point. See, when your taxes get cut, what the government is telling you is they're allowing you to keep more of your money. Like when you commies talk about millionaires and billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires.
I'm a capitalist.
No, you're not. You might think you are. But millionaires and billionaires, when and this is true for anyone that gets a tax cut, like the no tax on tips. Anytime there's a tax cut, what the government is saying, whether you're a tip worker or a billionaire, they're allowing you to keep more of your own money. The government seizes your money in the form of taxes to pay for a bunch of freeloaders, okay? And a bunch of other garbage that they don't need to be spending money on.
I mean, they use the tax money to pay for our public roads and our education system.
Well, if you haven't noticed, the public roads throughout this country suck. President Trump's repaving the ones in D.C. and the schools suck too. But when getting your taxes,
we're also using taxpayer money to occupy our major cities.
No, we're not occupying our major cities. But
what would you call the military going to our large cities and acting as police? The
military is not acting as police. They're
arresting people.
No, they're where is the military arresting people? In America.
DC.
No, they're not. The military are not arresting. No. The arrests are being made by the local Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police and federal agents, not the military. The military have not made any arrests in D.C. It's not true.
Would you argue that it is good that Americans have less and less of the share of the nation's wealth over time?
Yeah, you're talking about communism. Get a second job.
I'm not. I'm saying
yes, you are.
Yeah,
I know. Sometimes you want to spread the wealth around because you don't make any money. What do you do for a living?
Sir, I work at Chipotle.
You work at Chipotle, okay. So, you don't make that much money right now. So, of course you want to spread the wealth around. When you move into a higher paying job, then all of a sudden you'll want to keep more of your money and get pissed off that you got to pay taxes to pay for a bunch of bums.
The economy as it is getting worse and worse over time. It will eventually get to the point where even that job, that $100,000 job, is not the same as it was 20, 30 years ago. If we continue on the trend we are on, then even the higher paying jobs now will be less valuable.
So what's your solution?
solution is that, first off, I'm going to say I'm 20 years old. I don't have all the perspective in the world.
That's
I
right.
recognize that there's a problem. That all I ask, I don't ask for everyone to say this is what we need to do. I only ask that we recognize the problem.
It's not a problem. What you're talking about is you're not aware of it because of your youth. You've been brainwashed in the education system of the country of your generation, so you don't understand. What you're talking about is textbook communism, spreading the wealth around. That's not America. That's not the capitalist system.
I'm saying straighten the opportunity around.
There's plenty of opportunity.
Not everyone has.
You got to make your own opportunity.
Plenty of opportunity.
You got to make. You've got to make your own opportunity. You know,
That's true. You do.
I mentioned this a lot. I've been a broadcaster for over 30 years. I have no family connections or family wealth, and I just started working at radio stations, and I built a successful career. You just got to stick with it. And so far as Chipotle, you know, you could have a great career your entire life working in food service, moving into management. You know, you could move into management at Chipotle. You could become a district manager. You know, you could become a store manager, and you can make a good living. You know, there's opportunity out there. You're not looking for opportunity. You're looking for a handout.
I'm looking for the playing field to be as equal as it was in the past.
It is equal.
And it simply will not get there without action.
It is equal. What opportunity do you not have that I have?
I'm not saying it's not an opportunity you don't have, but I have. It's an opportunity that I don't have now that you had 30 years ago.
Really? What opportunity did I have 30 years ago that you do not have today?
Cheaper education for one. Cheaper housing for two.
Cheaper. Hold on. When I first started working at a radio station, okay, I had an apartment in downtown Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a couple miles from the beach. Sounds pretty fancy, but it wasn't, okay? And you know how much I was making an hour? This was around 92, 91. Do you know what I made an hour?
Okay.
What do you think I made an hour?
What was that, Jeff?
91, 90. How much? Hold on a second. How much do you think I made an hour? I'm living on my own. I'm working.
In 1992, I'm going to guess something around, so that's 30 years ago. I'm going to say you made something like $8 to $10 an hour.
$8 to $10 an hour. No, I made $5 an hour. And I was hosting a daily radio show.
What would that be?
Certainly not what you're making at Chipotle. Okay? And I was hosting a radio show 6 days a week. $5 an hour.
Could you? Well, you're at the computer right now. Could you please look up that adjusted for inflation?
$5. Okay, I'll look it up. Okay, let me look it up. $5 adjusted for inflation. What is $5 in $25? Okay, now what does Chipotle pay starting out?
The starting at Chipotle where I'm at is $14 an hour.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking it up. Let's see here. I'm looking it up. Let's see. No. I'm having a hard time getting that. I want to look it up. Hold on a second. I'm trying to look it up here. It's not giving me the exact answers. It says there's an increase of 2 to 3% a year. Let me do another search. Okay. What is $5? Oh, I didn't give the year. I didn't say 1992. $5. Okay, $5 in 1992, adjusted for inflation, is how much in 2025? Okay, I left out the 1992. Okay, okay. Well, I'm talking and typing. Let's see here. I'm doing a search. What did you say Chipotle starts out at?
Chipotle right now starts at about 14 hours, I believe.
Okay, $5 in 1992, adjusted for inflation, is $11.72 in 2025. So I was making, adjusted for inflation, I was making less, and I was still living on my own, and I had a pretty prestigious job because I was hosting a radio show 6 days a week, and I was pretty well known too, you know, and I was making $5 an hour.
How much of your income, how much would you spend on rent a month?
I had an apartment with a roommate, and the rent was $400 a month. The electricity was $100 a month. Okay, you see, I can remember because I was really pinching pennies, right? And luckily, my parents lived in town, so I could still go home and have some food every once in a while. But I was making less then than you are now, and I was still doing it.
That's
and
true.
and
In that
and
position you were.
and I would get off the.
You know, my mom's first job back in I think it was in the 80s or something. She was a lifeguard making about $8 to $10 an hour.
Yeah.
She was making, adjusted for inflation, $20-something an hour.
Well, I wasn't. So the reality is,
the average person was though.
No. In fact, back then, at that point, when I was making $5 an hour, minimum wage was like $3.65 an hour. So if you went to someone who was working full time, we didn't have Chipotle then, but we had like McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's and stuff. They were making like $3.35 an hour, $4 an hour. A shift manager would be making $6 an hour, maybe. So, no. And the reality of the situation is there's more opportunity now than ever because, see, if I were still 20, okay, and I'm you, and I want to make more money, what I would probably do is I would start a TikTok or a YouTube channel about working at Chipotle and talking about what goes into it, and talk about what you're talking about, all your commie stuff, about how there aren't all these opportunities in economic theory. You could go out and do on the side. Like I see a lot of DoorDashers on YouTube have, have YouTube channels. And they have YouTube, they make more money on YouTube than they do DoorDashing, right? So you could start a TikTok or something and make money on the side on top of what you make at Chipotle. There's always the original point is flawed from your point.
Shrinking?
What?
The original point is the middle class in America shrinking? The second question is why. The third question is why is Trump not doing anything about it?
Okay, no, Trump's doing everything about it. While it may be true.
Why is the middle class shrinking? Let's start with the first question.
Okay, and then I got to run for a break. But you say, is the middle class shrinking, and if so, why? And I'll say yes, it has been shrinking. But the reason why President Trump is taking care of it. As an example, I was talking earlier, here in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is turning the semi-truck weigh stations into ICE centers. So they're going to check the immigration status of the truck drivers, because you have to be a U.S. citizen who speaks and reads English to have a license to drive a semi-truck. The reason the middle class is shrinking is for several reasons. One of the biggest is illegal aliens have been taking good middle class jobs like truck drivers, and they've been driving and construction jobs, and they've been driving the wages down. When I was in the early 90s and 80s, when I was making $5 an hour, I knew guys that had lawn crews, and they made a good living. But then the illegals came over here; they started mowing the lawns a lot cheaper. So President Trump has shut down the border and is deporting by the millions illegals that have been taking middle-class jobs. Another reason is the Democrats have been moving our manufacturing overseas. President Trump's bringing the manufacturing jobs back. Those were solid middle-class jobs years ago. So and also overtaxation is another reason. There's other reasons too, but none of the reasons of the shrinking middle class have anything to do with the reasons you think.
I can see how you would think that.
Because it's true.
I have to go and get ready for work. Yeah.
By the way, I eat at Chipotle. I eat at Chipotle all the time. I eat there several times a week.
It's overpriced.
But it's good. It tastes good.
$20 for a bowl, chips, and guac, man. I don't know about that one.
Well, I don't get guac, okay, and so I don't get the add-on. I do get the double steak. I do get that, but I only eat once a day. My wife and I, we go to Chipotle maybe 3 times a week. I love it. All right, but see here you're bad-mouthing the company you work for. Oh my goodness, that's not good. How's that going to do for business? All right, take care. Good to hear. Hey, listen, thanks for calling. We disagree, but that's cool. And we had some good disagreement and some good discussion and debate. All right. All right. Take care. That's what I like to hear. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Okay. Now, I want to tell you guys about Dr. Appleton. If you're in pain, listen up. You don't have to be. You know, Dr. Appleton and his laser wave pain treatment has rid me of pain 7 times. He can do the same for you. And I hear from listeners all the time who are living pain-free lives because they took my advice and went to see Dr. Appleton and had the laser away pain treatment. It works on every type of pain I've ever heard of. And also, if you've been in a car accident, whether you're a driver, a passenger in a rideshare vehicle, you can go and have the pains from that accident treated with Dr. Appleton. The laser treatment works for the pains related to car accidents as well. I've met so many listeners in the 3 years I've been with Dr. Appleton who come up to me, and it's always the same thing. They come up to me at an appearance, and they always have their hand on a part of their body as they're walking towards me. Sometimes it's their neck, sometimes it's their hip, sometimes it's their knee, sometimes it's their elbow. They walk, and I know before they get to me, they're going to tell me how they're living pain-free now in that part of their body because they went to see Dr. Appleton. Appointments are not necessary. Walk-ins are welcome with Dr. Appleton, even on Saturdays. Okay? There's no shots, no injections, no drugs, no downtime, and it works. Give Dr. Appleton a call. His number is 954-973-0710, and say bye-bye to your pain. 954-973-0710. And online, AppletonCairo.com. Now, I'm going to tell you, that last caller I had, the 20-year-old kid that works at Chipotle, that was one of the best calls I've gotten in a long time from a liberal. I mean, he's hardcore through and through liberal, mainly because of his youth, and he has an experienced life. He's not making a lot of money right now. He was in shock that I was making less adjusted for inflation back in the early 90s than he makes at Chipotle by a lot. It shocked him, you know. But, you know, when back in those days, you know, there's this big debate, you know, Generation X, which I am, Gen X. I believe, and I'm not alone in this, a lot of people my age believe that we're the last hardworking generation. And Gen Z, which is what that guy, a very good call. I'm very happy that we could have a discussion where we disagree on all these big issues. And he didn't go to the profanity. He was very polite, and we had a real discussion, and it was nice and cool and refreshing compared to the liberals I usually hear from of all different ages. But you know, in my generation, you know, you earn less money, you just did without things. You know, today, if you know, you're Gen Z or a millennial and you're not earning a lot of money, you still want to have the newest iPhone with the most memory, and you want to have all the different apps and everything else. You got your subscriptions to this, you got your subscriptions to that. We just did without in my generation. And you know, when I was talking to him about like a second job, you know, and I don't want to sound, you know, like I'm the only guy that had a second job. You guys have had second jobs out there too. That's what you did. And you didn't even think about it. It wasn't that's just what you did. You worked a second job. And it wasn't just me. I can remember when I was in high school and I worked at Publix, there were guys that were grown men with families that worked at Publix at night to earn extra money. It's always been, but the Gen Zers, whatever they call themselves, Zoomers or whatever, millennials too, they just don't have a work ethic. They have an entitlement ethic, and they're pretty lazy, you know. And there are people that you know, with the second jobs, you know, even in the days long before, right, in the 1800s, people, you know, they had one job and the job was 15 hours a day or more, right? I mean, that's just the way it was. And that's the way it used to be. But that work age group of people today are just lazy. I don't know exactly how that happened. Lazy and entitled. And I don't know how that happened. But, you know, he called me. He's going to work at Chipotle, and I'm assuming it's 5 to 5, and I don't remember where he was calling from. But, you know, so he goes to work at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Do you see yourself when you were 20 years old sitting around all day and not going to work until 4 or 5 in the afternoon and doing nothing all day? And when does Chipotle close? So if you go in at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, what time do they close? 10? So I guess there's work that has to be done after that. So let's say you get out at 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30, but let's just say 11. So what? You've worked 6, 7 hours, and then you're off until 4 or 5 in the afternoon the next day? Come on. Come on. That's just not the way that my generation was raised. But that's the way that Gen Z is, and it's really sad. And Gen Z, they've been failed. They've been failed, I guess, by my generation, because my generation are their parents. So I guess the last hardworking generation, Gen X, maybe my generation didn't do such a great job of parenting as we could have, because we've got this generation of loafers. But for the life of me, I could not imagine at 20 sitting around all day, going to work at 4 or 5 in the afternoon to work 5 or 6 hours, maybe 7, maybe, and then complaining that I don't have enough money. That is beyond my ability to even comprehend. But that's the way it is today. But he's a pretty smart guy, and he'll do the right thing. Now, if you'd like to support my content, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link to my Patreon page in the description of the program on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all of my podcast episodes, as well as a lot of other exclusive content that I post nowhere else. Yesterday, I told you I went to did a little report. It's on my Patreon page at a local Cracker Barrel. I went to Cracker Barrel. I made a video. It is available exclusively to Patreon supporters. If you want to see that video, become a Patreon supporter. But there's a lot of other exclusive material that goes there, including commercial-free editions of each and every one of my podcast episodes. If you become a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen and on YouTube, and you get a live on-air thank you shout-out on each and every episode. So the names you will hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Sue, and Janice. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. Again, if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this episode. On every platform that you're tuned in on, and the direct website address you can go to is patreon.com/real Brian Craig Show. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from New York City. I'm not giving you my name.
All right.
Let's talk about the vast amount of misinformation that you guys spread on a daily basis.
Well, I'm just a guy. I'm not plural. I'm a singular guy, not guys. But that's okay.
Okay, so you on a daily basis, because I don't get it. Like, because you sound like you could be intelligent, and then the shit I just listened to come from your mouth over and over again is hilarious.
Which is what?
Like, I gotta ask. You have no education in economics. You have no real education in politics. A lot of the stuff you're coming up with is purely anecdotal. The shit about Gen Z being lazy, purely anecdotal. But you have no experience in anything. What have you done? Where are you coming from to be able to talk to such a large... First of all, it's not even that big of a group, right? It's like 300 people.
No,
so
I have. Excuse me. No, I have. I have over 100,000 that watch and tune into me on the various platforms I'm on each and every day. Over 100,000. Okay. And you ask about my background. I'll just tell you a little bit, because you're new. You don't know me too well. I've been a broadcaster for over 30 years, covering news and politics. So I have a lot of experience with news and politics.
So you've been covering news and politics
for 30 years and discussing it. Yeah, I have a college degree. I'm college educated. Absolutely, I have a college degree. Sure.
Okay, what's your degree?
Well, if whatever I tell you my degree is in, you're going to tell me you have the next higher degree. It's not important. I mean, I'm not going to defend my life to you, but you got a lot of If you
But you should, right? Because
No, why should I defend my life to you?
On a constant daily basis. It's disgusting.
Well, why,
right?
as opposed to, excuse me, as opposed to using vile words and language and profanities and everything else, take something I've said and explain to me how I'm wrong, and let's discuss it.
Okay, Trump's tariff, on and on about how it has helped the economy, when it has done nothing but fuel rising costs on top of being an extra tax on Americans. Defend that.
Well, everything you said is incorrect about the tariffs. Okay, with the tariffs, with the tariffs, no, it's not.
It is a rising cost on Americans.
No, in fact, prices are down. And if you, like, as an example, Walmart, they haven't raised the price on anything because of tariffs. Tariffs have brought like $1 trillion of business into the United States. Car companies, factories, computer chip companies. Yeah, it is. Yeah, they're Toyota, Honda, Volkswagen, BMW. They're building factories. Excuse me. You're on hold. Hold on a second. These foreign automakers are building new factories in the United States. Foreign automakers, because they don't want to have to pay an import tax on their cars. Okay? Computer chip companies are here. Apple is moving manufacturing to the United States. So no, this is all new business. You just don't want to deal with it.
No, it's not new business.
It is. Sure. Apple is moving manufacturing back. Apple is moving manufacturing back to the United States from China. That's new. Those are new jobs. He hung up. I did not hang up on him. He hung up. What a difference between those last two callers. Oh, my goodness. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available on all podcast platforms and YouTube at Brian Craig Show on YouTube. And if you want to catch the podcast live and be able to call in, follow me on YouTube, Brian Craig Show on YouTube. You can catch the podcast live, and that's where I take calls from, or people that are watching live on YouTube. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.